Hi everyone, welcome to Thursday. Now, normally I would do a share and review. However, this time I'm going to show you how I use Yahoo Finance. Hopefully that will help. It's a request that I've had come in and I'm happy to address it and hopefully help you on your share trading journey. Right, let's jump across and share my screen. Okay, if you pop Yahoo Finance into Google search, this is the first thing that comes up. This is like the home page, if you like. Now, over on the right-hand side, obviously, because I'm in New Zealand, it's highlighting the New Zealand markets here. Then you can have US, Europe, Asia, cryptocurrency. Let's just go back to the New Zealand market. Now, on here as well, you can see there's a lot of noise. Now, I do not take any notice with this noise that you can see in the middle of the screen. To me, that's all it is. So I just totally ignore it. Now, what you can either do, going back to the right-hand side, if you're wanting to look at the NZSX 50, you can click straight on that. Or if you want to look up the company that you want to research, you can just put that in the quote lookup there, just on the right-hand side above it. Or right at the very top where it says Yahoo Finance over on the left, you've got the big search bar. You can also put the company in there. Now, if you don't know the ticker code, that is perfectly fine. For example, we could put in Contact Energy. Let's assume that I don't know the code. Here we go, and it's brought it up here. And as you can see, it's cen.nz. Let's just click on that. Now, the very first chart that it brings up is this line chart, okay? Now, down on the left-hand side, it gives you a lot of information about the particular share or the indices that you are looking at. Okay, now I don't tend to take too much notice of those at all. The chart, if you like, is just what they refer to as a mountain chart. You can see that in the middle of your screen there. I'm highlighting that. You can click on those arrows and change it to either a line, candle, baseline, or a bar. Now, I do like candlestick charts. It just gives me a little bit more information. However, given this is a daily, it's not giving me a lot at all. I'm sort of recording this and it's about midday on Monday. Now, if I just keep scrolling down a little bit, you can see here it gives me information to say that the previous close for Contact Energy was $9.04. So that was Friday evening. It opened a cent above. You've then got the bid and the ask range. So they're obviously at the moment the same price. You've got the bid price, which is obviously what people are prepared to buy it for. And then the asking price is what people are prepared to sell that particular share for. You've got the daily trading range. So if we were looking at this, say, last week or later in the afternoon, it would obviously have potentially a lot more wider scope, if you like, on a daily trading range. It also gives us a 52-week range. So how the movements in that particular share, obviously, over the last 12 months, how much volume and also the average volume that's traded. Gives us the market cap on this particular share. The beta, I don't tend to worry about that. Same with the PE ratio and the earnings per share. That's obviously your dividend payout ratios, your earnings date, and then the potential for dividend and yield. So this stage, it's looking like it's paying about 39 cents or about 4.31% dividend rate. It gives us the ex-dividend date. So that went ex-dividend on the 25th of August this year. And it's got a 1-year target estimate where basically brokers feel that this particular share could go to. So it's saying $10.31. Again, I take absolutely no interest in that at all. This whole screen, in fact, I don't even take any interest in for the way I research a market. Now, to go further, on the top right of the chart, you've got advanced chart. Let's click on that. And as you can see, it's made the chart a lot bigger. On the right-hand side, you can see, I've got my cursor, it's highlighting mountain. Let's just click on that. And again, you have got a lot of choices as to what you want your chart to look like. Now, for me, I like candles. So we'll click on candles. And because this is on a daily chart, in fact, it's only on a 1 minute, that's why it looks a little bit noisy. I like to go out to the 5-year chart. So down the bottom on the left-hand side, you can see we've got 1 day highlighted, then it's got 5 day, 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, year to date, 1 year, and 5 year. I like to click on 5 year initially, and then that's what it looks like. And then if I carry on looking down the right-hand side, you've got interval, and it brings up 1 week. Now, I personally, when I'm evaluating a share, I like to look at that 1 week chart if you like to see exactly what's happening. If I hold my cursor on those candlesticks, it just makes them a little bit more bold. To me, it sort of smears them a little bit, and it can make it a little bit hard to read. Down the bottom is where we've got the volume. The volume is automatically popping up on this particular screen. Now, if I go back to the top right-hand side, you've got candle. The next one in is comparisons. So let's click on comparisons. Now, it obviously brings up the 3 most popular US markets or indices. However, I'm not interested in that. So with Contact Energy, I might want to review it against the main board for the S&P 500. So I'll just type in S&P and then go in. There we go, and it's just brought it up there. Let's click on it. And if I click away, it takes that box away. So you can see that Contact Energy is actually outperforming the New Zealand market. So the New Zealand market is up about 9.45% as at the recording, and Contact Energy is actually up 43.4% over the same period. So that's how you can make a comparison against the indices. Now I'll take that off and we'll go back to that same comparison chart. Now this time I might want to compare it against another utility company. So let's type in Meridian. So I know that Meridian's ticker code is MEL. However, if you were unsure, you would type in Meridian. And because I'm using a ticker code, I go MEL.N and it should bring it up. There we go. Great. And if I click away, it takes that box away. So the blue line again down the bottom is Meridian. Contact Energy is my candlesticks. The blue line is the comparison against Meridian. So Meridian Energy is up about 14.16% for the 5-year period, whereas Contact Energy is up, like I said before, 43.44%. Now to take these off, I didn't explain this. If I go over to the left-hand side, you can see that the Meridian comes up in blue. Just click the little rubbish bin. That takes it away. And then you're just back to your clean chart again. Now going over to the right-hand side, you can see a sort of symbol that says indicators. Now if I click on that, it's got the most commonly used indicators there, which are things like the moving averages, the Bollinger Bands, the RSI, MACD. But if I scroll down, there are a lot of different indicators in that you use. And to be honest, I don't use hardly any of them, and I have researched some of them, but not many. This is where you would select what you want to look for. Now, I use the moving average a lot, so let's click on that. So it brings up this box and it automatically comes up with the period 50. For me, I like to make it a 30. So all I do is I click in the box, highlight it and type 30. Underneath it says field. So it defaults to close. However, you can have it on the high, the open, the close, whatever you would like. The type defaults to a simple moving average. Now, for me, I like to use an exponential, but again, you can see that there's different sort of moving averages that you can use. Again, it's up to you, but I would recommend that whatever method you use, you stick to it and don't chop and change because it will distort your results. But if you stick to one method and apply the same rules every time, then you should end up with a good outcome. It's when you chop and change that you get different results. So let's click on exponential. Offset, I just leave that. You've got the MA there, it's the moving average line. I just leave it as a default. It's come up in this example as red. Again, I'm just going to leave it as that. Comes up on the panel as auto. So again, depending on where you had your panel, what you wanted an indicator on, you would select whatever panel. But because I'm on only this panel, let's just leave it as auto. Y-axis, just leave that as it is as well and click done. And you can see there it has brought up the red line for the moving average. Now, quite often what I will also do is have a comparison against the 1 year chart. So down the bottom left, at the moment it's highlighted in blue 5 year. Let's click on the 1 year. And it still brings up my moving averages, but of course, instead of it being a weekly moving average, it brings it up and makes it a daily moving average. And if you look down here on the right and towards the middle of the screen, you've got your interval at 1 day. So it immediately makes it a 1 day chart. My moving average becomes a 30-day moving average. Go back to 5 year. Now I've already got that moving average on. If I go back up to the top right and click on indicators again, quite often we'll do a moving average and we'll click on that. And this time we're going to make it a 15. I'm leaving the field as close. The type, which is currently sitting at simple, again, I want to change that to exponential. Now this time down under the MA, you've got the line and the red box. If I click on that red box, it brings up basically a color chart. Now I like to change it and I quite often use blue. So all I do is select the blue, then come back to my main chart and just click done. And you can see there that it's brought up the blue line, which is obviously my 15-week moving average in this example. Now let's take both of those off. And again, if I go back to the right-hand side and go to indicators, this time I might want to have a look at the RSI, which is the relative strength indicator. It defaults to a 14 period. I always use a 21 period for this particular one. I keep it for the close. So the close actually means the closing price of the share for that particular day. And you can see here that it's got 80 as a default for overbought or 20 for oversold. For me, I just keep all of those the same. Let's click done. And you can see it's brought it up on the bottom of my screen here, that RSI, and it's currently sitting at about 51.26. So it's not in an overbought or in an oversold territory. It's basically neutral. Now you can leave these indicators up, or you can obviously take them off. And to take them off, you just go to the left-hand side and just put your cursor over the RSI there, and then the first indicator in is basically the bin, so you just click on that. If I go back up to my indicators again, click on that. If I select MACD, so that's the moving average convergence divergence. So the fast period moving average, so I'm using a 15, so let's change that to 15. We'll change the slow period moving average to 30, and let's just leave the signal at 9. So let's just hit done. And you can see it's brought that up down the bottom here. So it's got the volume and then the two moving averages. You can see here that obviously the black line is my fast period moving average and the red line, the slow moving average. And what I'm tending to look for here, I don't rely on it heaps on this particular chart, although I do have it up. I want to see, is there periods where on the main board, if you like, or the main share that I'm looking at, are there periods where, like through here's a good one. So from sort of September last year to around sort of mid-December last year, you can see that the share was rising. However, by looking at the MACD, you can see that it was falling. So that's what we mean by a divergence. So the share is doing one thing, but the volume and moving averages and things are doing something completely opposite. Again, it's not a chart that I rely on heaps, but it is just good to see, is there something happening that I'm perhaps a little bit blindsided by? So that's what that one is. Let's take that off and go back to our indicators. Now, another one that I use a lot is the average true range. Now, the average true range is basically how much a share can move in a particular period. Let's change that to 21. And you can see that basically over a 21-week period, if you like, you could expect contact energy to swing up or down by roughly about 33 cents. Now, there will always be times, and if you go back over here to the left, when you look at April 2021, look at that ATR. That was quite high. That was sort of up around the 65-cent mark. So this is something that I use to help me put my stops in place. I will use a multiple of 4 on the New Zealand market. So at the moment, if that's trading at 0.33 cents, let's times it by 4, so that brings me $1.32. So it means I would take $1.32 away from my share price, which is currently $9.08. So I would have a stop loss at this stage loaded at $7.76. And that's just to protect me that if something happens and the share falls down, then that's where I would automatically be stopped out of the market. Obviously, as a share rises, I do tend to increase my stop losses as well, but base it on that ATR. Let's take that off. Now, the last one I want to show you, if I scroll down, is the volume. Let's go volume chart. So as you can see here, it's replicated the volume on the top of the chart because that automatically comes in, but it's put it down the bottom. And what it then means I can do is I can go back to my indicators, I can select my moving average again, and I might want to make this a 14 period. Again, I want to make it an exponential, and I can select panel 2. There we go there. So you can see that that moving average has been put on for contact energy over the volume. Now, I want to see in a share that's certainly in a strong uptrend that you have big, strong candles like this one here on the 24th of February this year. But I also want to make sure that the volume is above those moving averages. So those are the main indicators that I use. If you go further along on the right-hand side, you can click on that. It will tell you corporate events. You can obviously draw your own sort of support and resistance lines in if that helps. And then obviously you can go in and have a look at your settings in that as well. So I've just left everything pretty much as default, except for when I go in and change things like the moving averages, that sort of thing. And obviously you can hit reset and it will take you automatically back to the initial screen when we first opened it, and it will take them all off. I'm using this on the incognito window because I wanted to bring it up as if I was looking at it for the very first time, which probably you are. Because otherwise, if you leave your settings, what happens for me now is if I go in and look up any particular share, so if I suddenly went and typed in Spark, for example, SPK, here it is on the top left, you can see that I've still got all my candles showing. I've got that volume chart showing. So all the parameters are exactly how I have initially done it when I was doing that research on contact energy. So I'll stop sharing. I really hope that's helped. It's something that I use all the time. Certainly, if you're a regular viewer of mine, you will have noticed that as well. Hopefully that's been really clear. If there's something there that you're going, I'm really lost, I'm really not sure, sing out. I'm happy to help, and I could certainly do another video. So thanks for bringing that up. It's been great to do. Until next week, take care.